All right. This is Bench Talk Live. Live here on YouTube. We got a great show for you today. Let some people join in before we get started. Got some great news to share with you guys. We're going to get right into it in just a moment. Sip of coffee to the working man. Bench Talk Live. What's up, Xavier? Appreciate you tuning in, bud. Gonna get the show kicked off in just a second. Let some more people file in. All right, you are listening to Bench Talk Live. I am your host, Coach Ben. Thank you for tuning in through YouTube. Also, make sure that you follow us on our other social channels. You can see us on Facebook, and obviously, Instagram is a huge platform for us. At Big Benches on Instagram. If you're not following there, you're gonna miss out on some additional content there too. So, make sure you're following our channels. Got some exciting news, guys. We just redid the website, got everything transferred over. We have a completely new website, so um, that's awesome. But the main reason why I wanted to make this switch is the interface for our online courses. The interface for just how you interact with all our content is completely different, and I think a real convenience factor for you guys. When you join one of our courses, our bench press course is getting uploaded now. We have mastering Shirta benching. So, I mean, if you are a beginning Shirta bencher or you are an advanced Shirta bencher, I put all content on there that you need in order to learn how to break in your shirt properly, what shirt to get, the difference in shirts, different material types, how to groove the shirt, how to train in the shirt, includes a program. I mean, it's jam-packed with everything you would need to master shirted benching and to increase your bench exponentially. So, I mean, all that's available. New site, bigbenches.com. You go to courses, you can see all our digital products there. So I'm really excited you can interact through those with our app. There's an app if you download Kajabi off the Google Play or iTunes store there, whatever it's called, the App Store there. Get the Kajabi app. You can access that all from your phone. It's awesome. I subscribe to other courses as well. Last night I spent some time on my phone just going through the courses. It's great, easy access wherever you are. So all our stuff is going to be easily absorbed by you guys. I just wanted to make that more convenient, better interface for you. So I'm super excited for that switch. Also, for the announcement of our membership getting rebranded as the Better Benching Academy, in which I'm going to add some new subcategories. I mean, everyone that's on our membership now is going to have access and be a part of this, but the Better Benching Academy is really a place where you're going to get all the info you need to improve your benching, avoid injury. You're going to receive programming. So, really going to help you from all corners of the game, technique. Better Benching Academy. I'm really excited to announce that rebrand. And hopefully for you guys to get involved, you can check that out as well at bigbenches.com. There's a tab for the BB Academy. And I hope you consider joining us there as well. And that will be, again, through this new interface, this new site. And you can access that right from your app. All right, let's get into some questions. That's why everyone's here. Matt, your content is so hardcore, YouTube wouldn't let me join this video unless I switched off restricted mode. I mean, yeah, man, it's we're dropping bench bombs here, and not everyone can access bench bombs. Sip of coffee to you. Thanks for joining in. Same, watching from my assigned laptop from school. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. I don't know what's the deal with switching off a restricted mode deal. I didn't do anything different from last time, so I hope everyone can access the video all right, can see me, hear me. We're gonna get some questions that came in from Instagram the other day. All right, to kick it off, and as more join in, and you guys have some questions, and drop your questions in here. I'm really excited to talk shop with you guys today. Hopefully, get some more joining in, talk some benching. First question I wanted to address: can greater speed off the chest help break sticking points? And my answer to that is absolutely. If you can get up your rate of acceleration, can accelerate quickly at the bottom hole. I relate it to, think about a NFL wide receiver. Okay, the good ones can accelerate in and out of cuts very quickly. You see some of those slot receivers, they can stop on a dime, change directions very, very quick. Similar types of traits you want to have with the bench press. If you can stop on a dime, aka the pause, all right, we want to get that weight down, stop completely, and change direction. Same type of deal when we're talking bench press. Maybe not quite as greatly involved as going through a juke or whatever, going through a cut, but it's the same thing in relation to what we're trying to do with the bench press, right? We're trying to accelerate as quickly out of that pause as possible. Hence why speed work can be so valuable for some who are not quite great at doing that yet. And you see some very slow lifters that can absolutely benefit from getting proper speed development in there. And, if you can accelerate quicker through where you would normally slow down, absolutely that's going to help you out. So that's a big component of it as well. That's why speed work can be very beneficial, and just training more intently. I'd say even more valuable than in speed work for your benching is just the aspect of mentality of training intently. And I usually bring this up once a show, but it's so important, and probably number one tip that I could really give anyone: training intently. And what that means is, it doesn't matter if there's an empty bar, if there's 135 on the bar, it doesn't matter if your max is 500 and you're benching 225, you are moving that weight as explosively as possible. There is no moment where you are being slow. You are firing through that weight with everything you got. You're giving everything to the setup. That needs to happen. If you're doing rep work, you're doing a 5x5, moderate weight, you need to fire through every rep like it's max effort. That will help you more so than any speed work that you do, is just moving more intently. It's that thing you usually see where someone, if you're benching and squatting, whatever you're doing, if someone just tells you faster, usually you end up going faster. Nothing really changed except someone cueing you to move faster. Your intent changed. So that's absolutely huge when we're talking about power development. That way, if you train slow, you'll be slow. If you train fast, you'll be fast. All right, so that's hugely important. All right, as you explode into everything you do, and then you start doing that long enough, it's just second nature. You don't have to think about it anymore. Someone cues you faster, you're already going as fast as you can. All right, so that's probably the number one tip I could give anyone, is train intently. All right, that is absolutely huge. But to answer that question, yes, speed off the chest will help accelerate through a sticking point. Think of that: force equals mass times acceleration equation. Okay. All right, let's see. Any questions coming in here? What would you do to work that speed off the chest, Matt says. So like I mentioned, training intently is going to be the number one factor for that. I do like the speed work, obviously, but I also do like some exercise such as like the Thompson style bench press, where we're purposely accelerating down to a pause just above the chest. I talk about without touching the hairs of the shirt. But we're like really letting that weight drop down quickly on purpose so that we could put the brakes on it quick and then explode out of that. Things like the dead press, if you have more bottom end strength, you're going to have the potential to accelerate quicker. So I think a good combination of training intently, some speed work in there if needed. Sometimes lifter really doesn't need to benefit too much from doing speed work, accelerating those lighter weights quicker. Really intent can do it. And then, like I said, bottom end strength. If you're stronger down there, you're gonna have the more potential to lift more explosively. We have tips on keeping the butt down when using leg drive. Obviously, this is a very common one. I know many lifters struggle with this. Okay, and the biggest things here, before I get into it too much, making sure you have good traction on, because everything I'm about to tell you, you're not gonna be able to do unless you have good traction. One of the biggest things to keep your butt down is understanding that you need to push back on the pad. All right, think about if you were trying to skim yourself off the pad. You're trying to throw yourself off the pad. Okay, you're not pressing into the pad. You're trying to push yourself back. That only works if you have a pad that's going to catch you. Okay, think about if you're running on ice versus running on pavement. Much easier to accelerate and drive off pavement, right? That's the same type of thing we're talking about when we're benching here. You need that traction to hold you in place. Now, if you don't have that, forget about it. I mean, you are not going to be able to create sufficient leg drive to begin with, because you're probably not pushing as hard as you can, or you're just bridging yourself up and holding position. And that's the main reason why someone's butt will lift, is they're just creating a glute bridge pattern, driving into the pad, letting their butt lift up. Another reason is they try to time their leg drive. They're not constantly pushing back. From the onset of your setup, when you are up on your traps, you need leg drive to keep that positioning. Okay, if you stop pushing with your legs, you're not going to be able to hold good positioning when you're setting up. You're going to collapse, if you will. And yeah, I see time and time again lifters give more intent towards that leg drive when they go to press the bar, like they're trying to gather some momentum. Don't think a leg drive is a way to get some momentum started off the chest. That's not the case. Leg drive is more or less used to just hold your positioning so you can properly load the lats and stay in good positions. When you start thinking about leg drive as a way to get that weight moving off the chest, then you're going to run into that issue, and more often than not, the butt's going to pop up because you're not really expressing your full leg drive potential before you even get the weight down. The other cue that I would use is knees out. If you're still struggling with your butt popping up at that point in time, I would cue hard knees out, because if you think about that outwards tension, you're not going to drive into the floor. When you're driving into the floor, think about what that feels like. Typically, if you do a glute bridge off the floor and you don't really think about knees out or outside of your hips, keeping that tension, you're just squeezing your glutes and you're pushing through the heel, right? And you know what a glute bridge will feel like. That's what's happening on the bench. Now, when you think about driving the knees out hard, it changes everything. So now you're more stuck in that position and you're just focused on pushing back. So that's the huge difference there. All right, that's the huge difference there with keeping the butt down. I think that covers a lot of it. It's a simple thing. Depending on the person's anatomy, they're going to be more prone to this or not, because the height of the bench isn't changing. It's like the height of the deadlift isn't changing for me. You got a 45 on there, it lifts the bar up only so much. Short little arms, doesn't help me too much. It's not like I can go into a meet and say, hey, put this on a 2-inch block for me. Same type of thing when you're going into a meet. You can't be like, hey, let's raise or lower this bench for me. All right, can't do that. The height, yeah, but in terms of where the pad height is, you can't change that. Okay, so yeah, you are a little bit more prone to your butt coming up if you have longer legs. But again, if you keep those things in mind, if you widen out your position, you think about knees out, you know how to create leg drive properly, shouldn't really be something that you have to worry about. Okay, I've worked with many tall lifters, and usually we can correct this. ABM Bowl, Gaglione's on Sunday. I don't think I will be there, my friend. I would love to meet up with you sometime. But definitely right now, football playoffs, I ain't going to be there. But Yeah, I'll talk to John soon and see when I can get over there, maybe get some training in and see what's going on. I'm not sure who's over there training now. I haven't been coaching over there since last March, so I'm almost a year. So I know a few people over there, but I'm not sure who's new over there right now. So yeah, I would love to meet up with you, and you're always welcome. Anyone who is in the area is welcome to come train with us, bench with us. We do have team benching this Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and typically Fridays at 6 p.m. We have team training bench. So I usually have a great group of guys and even ladies too come by bench, and we have a good time. So anyone is always welcome to join us for that. I came up with an exercise using a shorter bench and focusing on keeping my butt just touching and pushing as hard as I can up the bench. Would this be beneficial? Yeah, so I think training on a shorter bench definitely puts you at a disadvantage. So that would be more likely to have your butt above. Um, if you have the pad too high, this is an issue I ran into in 2018. Training for the damn 2019 Arnold. Um, Man, they switched the format to last man standing, so you're pretty much bench until there's one guy left, going up a certain amount each attempt. And I suck at that format. I'm a 3 lift bench meet kind of guy. That format, starting lower weight than you'd like. The training for it, just what goes into it, is not a fan. But I ran into trouble there because I had a fat pad on my bench unit, the Texas Strength Systems, and that raised it up way higher than you would get at a competition. Issue with that is now you're creating a situation in which your butt really easily touches the pad, all right, because it's up so high that your knees are way below your hips. And even if I did want a glute bridge, I'm not gonna be able to get my butt off the pad. So it creates that advantage. But then you go to a meet, pads lower, and you're like, oh shit, now I had to change my footing around. Everything felt super awkward. So that doesn't necessarily work, but I could definitely see putting yourself at a deficit. You think about if you do like a deficit bench, deficit deadlift, making it harder on yourself. A shorter pad is going to make it harder on yourself. So I think what you're doing there, Matt, is a great way to kind of drill the things that you need to drill. Because if you can keep contact or just minimal contact with that lower pad, and usually any commercial gym bench is going to be a lower pad height, I think that's a beneficial thing to work on. Sip of coffee to the working man. You see my pigskin mug here. Got some big football games this weekend. I'm gonna get my Super Bowl boxes ready. Man, I love this time of year, whether the Pats are in it or not. I'll find someone to root for. I'm just a football fan in general, so I'm enjoying these playoffs. Some really great games lately. Sip of coffee. See, Richie Tomlinson. How do you program your back work separate day or same day as pressing? So I try to train back as frequent as I do a session. And for our athletes, I'll have some back work in there every session. Okay, I think back is something that needs to be trained frequently, can handle a lot of volume, easily recover from, and is typically a huge weak point for lifters. You never heard you have too strong of a back. You might have heard your pressing muscles are kind of overpowering. You set yourself up for injury, limited mobility, but you never hear someone, wow, your back is just way too strong. You're putting yourself at risk for injury. You never hear that. So you can always train your back more intently. And let me tell you, I can't bench if I fatigued my triceps. So a couple weeks back, I did a heavy tricep, a lot of volume on a Wednesday. Try to bench on Friday. Man, 315 was shaking. I was like, I just can't this session. I can't even hold my warm-ups. As opposed to if I smoked back on Wednesday, I'm plenty good by Friday. This last Friday, I was carrying a lot of upper back fatigue for my training throughout the week, but I could still perform the movement just fine. I had no problems to what I would normally do. You're able to train in that fatigued state more readily than if something like the triceps are fried. So, I mean, my athletes, I'm always hitting back all the time. That's something that's been enormous in my training, really helping push me to the next level. So I recommend doing back training as often as you can. Usually it's just the main issue is how much time do you have to put forth in the gym. I don't want to overwhelm our athletes with a bunch of back work, and then they still have other stuff they want to get to, hinging practice and core work and stuff like that. So it's like, how much can you put in? I do like to see a dedicated back day when possible. Typically, if our athletes are bench only, they're going to have a dedicated back day. But if they are training squat and deadlift as well, full power athletes, which probably 90% of our athletes are, they are going to have that back work sprinkled into each session instead of like a dedicated back day, because we're usually working with about 4 days training a week. ABM Bowl. I'm doing the meet January 30th at Atlas Gym Belmar. I'll be there, my friend. I'm looking forward to being there, and look forward to talking shop with you again, seeing how you do. Doing bench only, 500 will go down. Can't wait to see it. Yeah, I will be down at that meet, planning to set up a table, 2-day event. So I should be there Saturday, Sunday. And yeah, super excited about that meet. Super excited to just be back at meets. This will be the first meet we're setting up a table at, and since last January Jersey meet as well. So, I mean, man, what a year it's been this past year. I'm excited it's over. I'm excited to be able to set up at meets again. Go to more meets. I think I went to like 2 meets since this whole thing began. So it'll just be nice to be back in that environment for sure. I missed it. And I'd love to see hit that big 500, bud. That's a huge one. Corbin, hello. If you train volume light bench press, will you touch and go, or do you pause even on those days? Thank you for good content on YouTube. Well, thank you, Corbin. I really appreciate you tuning in here, bud. So what he's saying is, do you do touch? It's pretty much the touch and go versus pausing your bench presses. And I will say always pause your bench presses, because that's something that you need to be trained for in a meet. There's so many scenarios when lifters kind of half-ass that pause, and then they get to a meet, maybe a USAPL meet. They're known to hold you there, and they're like, holy shit, I felt like I was down there forever. That's not the reaction I want one of our lifters to experience when they are at a meet. I want them to be like, this ain't so bad. This is actually a quick press call. I want the training to be that much harder, so when they go to the meet, it's not that big of a deal, and they're trained to hold the weight down there at the bottom position. You need to be strong down there. You need to maintain position. There's a lot in terms of technique that you need to develop just being down there at chest level. You need to have a strong upper back. You need to have the leg drive to hold the positioning. You need to keep all this tense as you're down there in usually the weakest point of the lift, waiting for that press command. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. You don't want the bar to start rocking down it there. You need to be super still. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. You always want to train a pause. If you're a competitive power lifter, always train the pause. And the only time I don't have our athletes pause if they're doing speed work, and then which we're doing a controlled touch and go, not a bounce off your chest touch and go, a controlled touch and go. Get down there, come up on your own volition, your own strength, okay? Not just bouncing. But always training pauses. We'll do a lot of long pause training too. It doesn't matter if we're going light, we're going heavy. We're always pausing. It's just part of it. So hopefully that helps out, my friend. That's kind of my rant on pause versus touch and go. It's so much more beneficial for you to do pausing. SM. I do a push pull, and I'm sorry. Before I get off to this next question here, I want to also touch on that previous question. Once you get used to pausing, right, you'll actually be stronger in a paused bench than you would be if you touched and go. All right, and a lot of that has to do with control and being able to control the bar path so much more efficiently than if you were kind of bouncing through it. I'll tell you, I definitely could do more with a pause than I could do touch and go. Okay, that's just because I've always trained pausing. So you actually get very proficient at it. On to the next one, SM. I do push-pull leg split, and I'm planning on prioritizing overhead press over benching at the moment. How would I organize my push sessions in terms of what exercises, rep sets? So my friend, shoot me an email. I have an overhead press 8-week program that I'd love to send you. Just shoot me an email, coachben@bigbenches.com. Anyone listening, if you're interested in that, just shoot me an email, send it over to you. I would encourage you to continue training bench. The only reason I would get away from any benching is if it was like an injury related issue and you just want to get away from that movement pattern for a while. It causes pain or something. Other than that, I would never really go without benching. I would add overhead press in, and I think it's a great thing to do on as a main movement on another day. But I wouldn't ever substitute it for benching. I think if you want to be great at benching, you have to have that practice in there. You don't want to just stop practicing that. It's not like it would be like if you want to be great at football. You want to be great at your position in football, right? If you're a wide receiver, it's not like you just stop running routes and go and play soccer to develop your foot coordination or speed or something. You know what I mean? You go play basketball. Um, it's not like you're going to train like a lineman for a while to build up strength, right? You need to run your routes. It's just something you need to constantly practice. So benching, you need to constantly practice that. Yeah, you could tone it down a bit and add the overhead press in. That's how I'd approach it, but I wouldn't just stop benching. But yeah, if you want an 8-week overhead press program, everyone listening, I'll give it to you guys. All you got to do is shoot me an email. My thank you for checking out the podcast. What do you think about dips and chaos bench as well? Well, Rich, I think that's a great subject to. I'm gonna upload now that you mentioned that in our Better Benching Academy, the new membership rebrand that we have. You go to bigbenches.com. You can check out the new Better Benching Academy. I'm going to upload some bamboo bar training in there. I'm actually going to really showcase a lot of different training movements and exercises and kind of explain them a little more in depth. But I will upload some what I like to call chaos or the hell sets on the bamboo bar. So it's in that chaos environment. If you're doing chaos push-ups on the bands, same type of thing, but a very unstable environment. And talk a little bit about what I like to do with that, how I like to progress that. I think that would be a great topic. So I'm going to get in more depth with that for a Better Benching Academy. But dips, I'm not a huge fan of dips. I don't do them personally. I'd rather just do something else than dips. A lot of it's just I've seen so many torn pecs from videos, and that's because you're performing dips wrong or doing it more for chest and just going a little too deep because it's very easy to go through that range of motion, hard to control. And if you weigh a lot, I mean, you're loading that movement up pretty good. That's like if you weigh 250, you go into a really low dip, especially angle a little bit for your chest. I mean, that's like doing no warm up on bench and just taking 250 and then getting a little loose, things snap. But yeah, I've just seen too many injuries from dips, so I don't personally do them. I do program them for our athletes, especially if they have like a dip attachment for the rack, or we do bench dips where the bench is behind you and you dip off that. That you got to watch a little bit because your shoulders, you got to make sure they're back, not in a vulnerable position there, putting stress on your shoulders. But yeah, I do program them in. I don't like to do them personally, but I think they're valuable. Matt says, don't stop benching. The ladies never ask your squat PR or even your total. Get the pecs a popping and the panties dropping. That's a great one, Matt. Yet that's totally true. No one's going to ask you what the hell you squat. I've never seen that happen before. Usually I walk into a gym. I got my big benches and stuff on, and I always get questions about, what I bench and this and that. And man, it's tough for me to answer because I'm all about the equipped life. And when you train equipped, that detrains your raw so much. I don't even know what I'd raw bench right now. I doubt it could even be 400 to be honest with you. But hey, I'm equipped benching in the 800, so that's all that matters for me. That's what I'm looking to bring up. So it's like someone talking about raw bench. There's monsters doing like 500 plus raw benches in the gym, like it's nothing. And I'm like, I don't have much to offer here. 400 is maybe my best in terms of that. But, and I need a good environment to bench. It's not like I can just lay down and start throwing it up. But the quit benching is really my sport specific training. Um, but man, a lot of those guys too that bench that amount of weight in the commercial gyms like that, not much technique to speak of. And typically what I see is they all have injuries. Every single one of them. Always saying, I couldn't do it for a while, my shoulder, all that stuff. Sip of coffee to the working man. some of that Death Wish coffee, a little extra caffeine. Richie Tomlinson. I can definitely agree with what you said with dips being possibly dangerous. I'm not that strong myself, only benching around 280, 290. I mean, that's good. It's all relative, my friend. I remember when I was pushing through the 200s, I'd be freaking psyched to hit 280. Bought a dip bar about a month back and just loving them recently. Hey, then roll with it. Yeah, especially if it smokes your triceps and it's something new. I love new stimulus. Doing a new pattern, doing a new movement. I'm always trying to switch things up a bit and come up with new things. I'm really excited about something that I'm going to film tomorrow, actually, for our Better Benching Academy. Another plug there. Go check that out, guys. Planning on just tomorrow is our film day. I was thinking in my head, I was coming up with this exercise I normally do. I try to think of different things that we could possibly do to make things more efficient. This is actually a shoulder exercise. Try it out and film that tomorrow. Um, I think it's going to really put a really good spin on some of the shoulder development stuff, stability wise, and things like that, and really targeting the shoulder. So I'm excited to film that for the Better Benching Academy. But yeah, dips. If you have a stimulus that is new or really smokes you, I like to switch things up because that's going to help you grow. GeoPower 50. Hey, coach, do you like inclines and when and where to add them and how much work, sets, reps? Thank you. So it really depends if are you using an incline as like a main movement or a secondary movement. Okay, there are scenarios where I'll plug it in as a main movement, usually in place of if I was going to have an athlete, usually a raw bencher, do an overhead press main movement day, but they're limited mobility or I just don't feel comfortable with them doing overhead movements heavy like that. Maybe they have a history of shoulder injuries or something or limited mobility. Um, Usually, older lifters as well have a very limited T-spine mobility, external rotation of shoulders, usually been through their fair share of surgery stuff. So I'll use incline benching as substitution to still hit the shoulders predominantly, but also get some chest development there too. If we're using it as a main movement, usually going to keep it in that 6 to 3 rep range. And just going to be kind of careful with how low you're getting with it, making sure you're still keeping tension. You don't want to just let that weight drop. But where I mostly use the incline press with our athletes is usually as a secondary kind of chest development type work, where I would have them maybe do like close grip Spoto style. So they're actually going to travel all the way. They're going to take a closer grip because that's a long range on an incline close grip like that. That can usually really expose you and beat you up there through your shoulders, especially with limited mobility. But I'll do a close grip Spoto. Right, they'll come down to about here, wherever they feel like they're going to start losing that tension on the bar. It's just going to free drop. They'll come about mid-range, press it up. Great for tricep development while adding in some shoulders and pecs. Um, but yeah, that's usually how I'm going to use it. And that's going to be about, you do that for high reps, so 12 to 8, 8 to 12, that kind of rep range. Getting some hypertrophy in with that. Because usually I'm using it as a chest builder. So we'll have something, main movement, a little bit heavier. It's a different form of benching. And then we'll go into the incline. 1 rep max. Hey, greeting from Tijuana. That's interesting there. I have a question. Does denim stretch out and lose pop? I got an Inzer 3-ply denim open back. So I haven't really benched in a denim shirt. But from my understanding with that material, similar to like canvas material when you're squatting, and from what I hear, I mean it'll probably stretch out a little bit, but it's really gonna have a certain stopping point. It's not gonna stretch like a polyester shirt, right? It's going to really kind of catch you at a certain point. So if you get that shirt, important that you dial in the sizing. Sizing is going to be super important because even when you do break it into some degree, you're going to need a certain amount of weight to hit a certain point. So you got to make sure you're strong enough to handle that weight. If you size the shirt too tight, it's just going to take so much weight probably to get that weight down, get that bar down, that maybe you're not even in a position where you're strong enough to handle that weight yet, but it is going to have tremendous stopping power. It's probably going to reserve its life for a longer period of time for sure. So the sizing element of a denim shirt, very important. You don't have as much wiggle room to gain and or lose weight. But hey, that's one of the shirts I would love to try to get into and just kind of play around with how it feels and stuff like that. Probably would never compete in it. I don't think I'd like it that much, but I would just like to get one on and mess around with it for a couple days. What is your thoughts on an overhead press day for bench strength? I think it's great. Usually use it for raw lifters. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier on the show here, if you guys want to shoot me an email, coachben@bigbenches.com, you can shoot me an email. I'll send you out the overhead press program, our 8-week overhead press program. All right. My thanks for tuning in. If you want to join our Better Bench Academy, all the programs are free there. All right. So I'm going to have a link to all of our programs, 6-week bench program where lifters average gain is about 15 pounds in that 6 weeks. I don't know about you, but I'd freaking love to gain 15 pounds of my raw bench in 6 weeks. That's what people are doing with that program. And we have the Shirta Bench program, all that stuff. That's all going to be available in our Better Bench Academy. Go to bigbenches.com to check that out. Matt, think Newton keeps his job or Watson is going to be brought in? I mean, I would much prefer to see Deshaun Watson in a Patriots uniform over Cam Newton. From what I saw last season with Cam, despite, he doesn't have good weapons, O-line kind of sucks, but I mean, there's only so much kind of running. It's not even like he's a speedster or nothing. I mean, he can run the ball, but he's no Lamar Jackson or nothing. So I wasn't that impressed this past season. So I'd love someone else to come in. I'd rather see Stidham get another shot or something like that. I want to see a pocket passer. I don't want to see Cam anymore. This year sucked. Corbin, I recently have issues with chest pain close to the armpit area. Do you have any idea how to change technique to be able to continue to train, or should I just give it a rest? So it really depends on, I guess, the type of pain you're getting. This is something that I dealt with a lot, more so when I was raw benching, and it's usually just having a certain tolerance. Like I didn't want to overload volume. Once I started feeling like my right side starting to feel a little bit weaker, um, maybe a little bit more discomfort, I would cut it there because I'm not going to ever put myself at a place where I don't feel comfortable taking that weight down. Usually it's just a matter of you have to rest something. Um, but I would also look at why maybe that pec is taking over so much. Maybe getting overdeveloped, putting too much work on that side. It's like if you were shifting hard on a squat. I would definitely try to dissect why that's happening. So that would kind of be the main thing to look at so that doesn't happen again. But in the immediate, I'd probably give it some rest depending on what kind of pain it is. If it was like an acute pain and it just keeps coming up, I would just kind of rehab that a little bit. If it's something like light discomfort, like I was going through, just feel stretched a little bit more, that I could continue to train, but just be careful with it. And hey, if you got to work on boards or a slingshot for a period of time, that's fine. I had a shoulder thing going on for the majority of this past year. I could do my shoulder benching just fine. I could do slingshot work just fine. So, I mean, that's what I did. I'm no better or worse for it right now. Richie Tomlinson, do you have a specific brand of a bench you would recommend one now? It's slick as oil. Watched your video on using a yoga mat and it worked great. Yeah, so I recommend I have one, Texas Strength Systems bench. I think they make a great unit. It's pretty cost efficient. I think it's going to run you around $1,000. I mean, I got everything put on it in terms of the safeties, the hand jacks in the back, the band pegs, all kind of features you can add on to it. And it ran me about $1,000 at the time. So I mean that's pretty good price point for that. It's sturdy. I love it. It has the rollers on the rack too. It's very easy to move the bar around. Nothing else I'd really like to have on that I don't have now. The pad it comes with is horrible. I would get the pad off right away. So what I did was I immediately took their pad off, put my fat pad on, and then before switching to Tiny Meeker's pad, I think Tiny Meeker makes one of the best bench pads I've ever benched on, other than Gene's pad with RPS. Um, it's great cushion. You can size it custom for you. So if you reach out to Tiny Meeker on Instagram, just let him know you're interested in a bench pad. He will make that for you. It's like $275 shipped, at least in my location, New York, and um, man, is it worth it? That's a great bench pad. So I would recommend the Texas Strength System unit and then Tiny Meeker's bench pad. No better combo than that. Love my setup. One rep max. Okay, so I guess the problem I had over the weekend was uh, losing too much weight. Thank you. By the way, they're super cheap and ends their website. See you on Insta. Appreciate you tuning in, bud. Yeah, the denim shirt's definitely a lot cheaper, for sure. I think there's more potential in a poly shirt, but like I said, I'd be interested to play around with one for sure. Geopower, thanks, coach. Also, pull aparts and face pulls. When to add and how much volume or work. I think you can really slam the face pulls, pull aparts as well. I used to do like 100 band pull aparts before I even start benching. I've since switched my warm up a little bit, but yeah, anytime you get more face pulls or band pulls in, I think that's again one of those things you can do a lot of, and you're probably never going to overdo them. Okay. We'd also, this past summer, we played around with something I found from an article. You set a song, or better if it's at random, in case you get hit with CCRs. Heard it through the grapevine. It's like an 11-minute song, and you just do face pulls to the song, to the entirety of the song. So whether it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you're doing face pulls for the whole song before the session. I was smoked after that. You start off doing regular face pull, and then as it gets harder, you start going to like a high row, and then even in just to a row. Um, Point being, just getting a lot of volume on your upper back, and you'll recover from it. You'll get accustomed to it, but that's always something I like to see more of for lifters. It's hard to program because again, you're working with selected time slots. So I'm always thinking, what can I fill this time with that's going to be best bang for buck? Is that really going to be doing a bunch of face pulls beforehand? Usually I'll have face pulls in as an accessory at the end of the workout, and we'll have like a rep goal, like 100 or 200 face pulls before the session's over. That's usually how I work it in there. Um, Band pull aparts before you bench, get 100 in. I still program those warm ups where it's pressing dumbbell press, dumbbell high row, and then 100 band pull aparts. Called the Big Ben bench warm up. I do program that in for our athletes still. So it's all like, when can we squeeze that stuff in? And my general recommendation on off days, I always encourage our athletes, if you want to get a little more training in, do posterior chain work, hamstrings, glutes, back development, and that's the time to also include them. Masa Hiri, should I focus on bending the bar, spreading the bar during the whole bench press movement? Should I bend the bar not only when pulling to the chest, but also when pushing the bar up from the chest? Yeah, so I mean that tightness should be set in place even when you're pressing the bar. Um, the way you're mentioning it here, I just want to encourage you not to be overdoing that cueing. When you bend the bar, it shouldn't create any excess elbow movement, so it shouldn't really tuck. I wouldn't think of it as bending the bar and then your elbows tuck into position. It's more of like a rotation through the arm, and if you're doing it properly with your back, you're using your back to create that bend, to create that rotation. And that's the key, because if I just twist my arm into the bar, I mean, then I'm going to get shooting elbows in. I have to be tight and doing that with my back. If that's the case, it usually just locks your position in. You can't really move your elbow at that point. So you don't really have to think about tucking it or whatever, elbow positioning. So that's what I encourage you to think about when bending the bars. Check out our resources on YouTube for that. Bending the bar, making sure that it's not just, again, twisting and the elbows shooting in. because that's going to put you in a real bad position in the bottom and not help with the press. It's usually going to, your elbow's going to flare out with the press and everything. So, um, yeah, whole time. Brent Hermione, what's the best bench focused split? So for our bench only athlete, it would be um, main bench, like on a Monday or something. It depends on how many days they're training. Usually, if we're just doing bench only, ideally, if it's a 4 day split, if we could get 4 days in, main bench the first day. So whether that's your main raw, usually working up to some kind of a max, or a top set. I've been trying to get away from saying it's a max attempt because that messes with everyone's head. They always think you got to hit an all-time PR. Top set. We're working up to a top set for the day, whatever that may be. Then the next session will be more of a recovery based workout. So you'll probably have, how I've been kind of splitting it up is you have your recovery bench, like feet up benching 2x20, just get some blood flow into the muscles, stuff like that. And then it's usually like some shoulder stability work or something like that. Thursday might be like back workout. And then that Friday would be our secondary bench workout, whether that's speed work or a volume bench or whatever that is, different variations that individual needs. That's how I split up the training for our bench only lifters. So technically you're benching 3 times a week and you have the bar in your hands 3 times a week, but it's really 2 main bench sessions, but we have that additional recovery session. And you could work that out too. I've done program in the past where it's like your main bench, you do like a variation. You got to really control the intensity there though. You got to work really low intensity or do a variation doesn't allow you to handle much weight, and then maybe your volume at the end of the week. One rep max. Hey, sorry. One last question. Hey, you can ask as many questions as you want, my friend. Feel free. What do you think about the Mendy technique, where you get so tight that your warm ups can't touch your chest, and you need a certain amount of weight to touch? So I know exactly what you're talking about. I always try to check out his channel as well, and I love all the things he says. Obviously, he's one of the best benchers ever, and it's like everyone describes things a little bit different or a little bit different ways, but the principle behind it's always the same. So I love how he mentions that because it brings more awareness to like creating that stopping power through your lats. The fact that he doesn't actually bring the bar all the way down, I think, is a little over exaggerated, because you could definitely keep the lats engaged but bring the bar down, typically. So I understand what he's getting at there, but I think he overdoes that a little bit. I think he over exaggerates with what he shows. So that's my thoughts on that. But definitely you should be thinking about your lats as like the brakes there in the bench. Universe AZ. Have you ever experienced costochondritis, aka sternum pain, from dips or bench? Maybe in the past, like really long ago, I would get some of that sternum pain you're talking about, but not in recent years, not in recent memories. I do know what you're talking about, though. At some point in time, I had that a little bit, and I do think I was doing dips when I would feel it. Um, but yeah, not of the recent years. So don't have a ton to comment on that. Richie Tomlinson, what do you think of 3 day splits or alternatively DUP style programming? I've been messing around with a third day for calisthenics and it's really kicked my ass. 3 day splits or daily undulating periodization. So I think definitely that's needed. Like I was mentioning, there's definitely going to be some undulation to how you program like 3 benching days in a week. They can't all be high intensity. They can't all be a shit ton of volume because you need the recovery time from that too. And so you need to have some days like you're working really lightweight. I mean, it's a speed workout or something like that. It's not going to be so taxing. Um, so you always got to consider what you're doing there. All right, but sip of coffee to work, man. Got something stuck in my throat. I think, yeah, 3 day splits. It really depends if you're just benching only or you're working under movements. You care about your squat and deadlift. You're a full power lifter. So and nothing wrong with calisthenics. So you can get very strong doing that. Get very strong. Um, in terms of how it relates to a 1 rep max bench press, I think there's better things because you want a sufficient strength stimulus. And if you can crank out 60 push-ups, and now you're ventured so far over to like the endurance side of things that it's not really relatable to a 1 rep max bench press at that point. Brent Hermione, hey man, just want to say you helped a lot with my bench. Just the simple stuff like feet positioning and stuff. You contributed a lot to my bench. I hit 385 at 16 last year, 17 now, chasing a 405. That's an amazing bench, my friend. I'm really glad that our content helped out. I'll add you to the list. I'm trying to positively influence 100 lifters to hit PRs this year. I really appreciate reaching out. Um, we're probably already at like 10 people. The little bit of the year that we've covered so far. So that's awesome to hear. I really, really appreciate that. And that's a great bench to have it. When I was 17, shit, I don't even know what I was benching. It ain't that though. I'll tell you that. So you got a great start. Definitely keep in mind injury prevention. Okay, you got such a great head start. You got so many years ahead of you. Have patience. Okay, because progress will eventually slow down. You're gonna get frustrated at times. You're going to have discomforts at times. You're going to want to push through, but you got to play the long game. Think about you're such a head start now. If you want to continue doing it, what you'll be able to do at 30. Okay. That's always something I tell people. Hey, think about the future too. Set yourself up for success in the future. If you can make small incremental progress year after year until you turn 30 versus pushing something too soon at a young age, hurting yourself, setting yourself up for discomfort down the road, and also taking you out of training for a year or a half year. It's just time you're missing. So play it smart, be patient, and you are going to have a great bench ahead of you, especially in the future. Corbin, I have a lot of bench press variations in my training. Is it necessary to have a shoulder press in the program as well? Rather want to focus more on my rear delts and rehab rotator work. I think the overhead press is a great strength builder, but definitely you want to consider having a stable shoulder too. That's going to be really important. And just overhead pressing alone is not going to develop that. That's like really a main weight mover. So you have to do your smaller movements, your stability type work, and stuff like that. I think that's more beneficial than getting your overhead press up at times, but you need to have that balance of just a stable shoulder, and then you can display strength very well too. Shane, nice hair, bro. Appreciate it, bud. For talking about the beard, not too much up there. Keep that shave, fresh shave this morning. But yeah, this thing's going for a while now. Look at that. Can't even fit it in the frame. I'll take a few more here. MMO Productions, what's your opinion on high rep sets, 15 to 20 rep sets, heavy sets as well, but one bench workout with 15 plus reps seems odd. Some heavy benchers say it is the tension the reason they can bench 500 pounds. So I think some volume training is important. Um, you want to build size as well, and you're going to do that through hypertrophy and more reps. So I can definitely see that, especially for the big dudes. If we're talking about someone who wants to stay in the 198 or 220 weight class, I mean, how much size can you really pack on to the point where you're just jumping weight classes? I mean, if you're already over super heavyweight and you just want to get big and strong, you look at a guy like Julius Maddox, where he's like 400 pounds or something like that. It doesn't matter if he gains another 20 pounds or whatever. Hypertrophy work's going to be very valuable for him because he's just always trying to get bigger, stronger. But I mean, if you're someone going for a 198 record, you got to stay 198. So a lot of times you just need to develop the strength with the muscle mass you have. So that's something you have to consider too. Robert Ring, how important is back work for the bench and specifically the upper back? Also, how many exercises should one do on back day? Great question there, Robert. I tell you that upper back training is immensely beneficial to your bench. I gained in 1 year, actually in 5 months period of time. I went from it was 730 bench to 8 20 bench, gained 90 pounds in that period from a lot of direct upper back work that I wasn't necessarily doing before. And I've been adding more of that back in and feeling really confident with the heavy weights. Having a strong back is crucial for building that stability and all that. Um, definitely a huge topic that I will touch on in our Better Benching Academy. You can go to bigbenches.com to sign up for that program, the Better Benching Academy. I'm also going to have some of our resources linked in there as well. Something that you could check out is our article on elitefts.com, where I think it's titled Big Back, Big Bench. And I went into real good depth there about how you should train your back relative to benching, and then also how to use it technically. Because if you have a big, strong back, but you don't know how to use the technique correctly, it doesn't matter. Likewise, if you're great at the technique, but you never get your back stronger, it doesn't matter. So you need to have the perfect marriage of both of those things. And that's exactly what I talked about in that article. If you search my name or you search Big Back, Big Bench on elitefts.com, you'll see that article I wrote. Richie Tomlinson, any opinion on Conjugate for raw lifters? So pretty much all our programming for our lifters right now is based around the Conjugate system, and we've seen immense results with it, with the bench press. With squats and deadlifts, we've encountered situations where it's a little bit too much on certain lifters. We have to kind of stagger the heavy work, or actually split those days up so it's not just one whole lower body session anymore. It's like a squat workout and a deadlift workout, and we're staggering the weeks we go heavy. But for bench press, it seemed to have immense results. We're oftentimes working up to a top set. We're working heavy, high intense weights, which I think is really important for someone to get their bench up. The thing that I would keep in mind is you do want to have enough rep work in there as well, and different accessory movements to get your hypertrophy strength in. As Louis talks about, the rep effort, whatever. You have your speed effort, your max effort, and then your rep effort, whatever the hell you want to call it. And that's really just your hypertrophy work, gaining size, strength, stuff like that. Very important to the bench. You can develop your power through the speed work. You can develop that one rep max strength through the max effort work. But very important that you have that hypertrophy work in there, and that you're doing that. Because if all you do is heavy bench and then that's it, you can't really expect your bench to go anywhere. All right, guys. I'll take one more question. If someone wants to get it up first. All right, we'll get one more question here. Sip of coffee to the working man. And then I'm out. All right, MMO Productions. We're going to cut it off there. What is the max percentage of your one rep max do you lift during the off season? So it's not going to be as much. I don't do as much percentage based training now. Usually for our athletes, it's more RP based because we're working up the top sets within the Conjugate system. So I don't really assign a percentage for the most part, but it's usually variations. Like we're going to start off probably doing a new block with a lot of pause work, extended pause work. So you're just not going to be able to lift as much weight. So obviously you're going to be working at a lower percentage than is your one rep max. To what that is specifically, I'd say low 80s, something like that for the most part. It depends if you're in reps too. Like a 5 rep max is usually about 87% of your one rep. So usually working at those intensities and stuff like that. And then as the program develops, working on singles and developing that a bit. I'll take one more from Alex here. You said dumbbell bench before benching earlier, if I recall. Could you go into a bit more depth on that? Yeah, so one of our warm-ups that we program for athletes is what I call the Big Ben bench warm-up, for lack of better terms, a little routine I created. And it's 3 by 20 dumbbell bench. Okay, don't need to be anything like crazy weight here. We're really just, we definitely don't want to take it to failure. But it would be nice if each 4-week block, if you want to continue with this warm up, you add like 5 pounds, you pick up the next 5-pound dumbbell. But yeah, I would do it like 30 pounds, 50 pounds, just kind of work my way up. You can go up 2 if you want, but 3 by 20 dumbbell press And then I would go into 3x20 elbow out rows, like a metal row. So you're targeting your upper back, trying to squeeze the upper back, develop the rear delts and all that. Um, and then you would go into the 100 band pull aparts before you bench, and you would get lying on the bench. You grab the band here. It's like you're kind of set up the bench, and then you can begin to kind of bend that band, and then you're pulling it apart here. So we're kind of working our back relative to how it is when we're lying down the bench. But that was the routine. You can search that on YouTube. I believe it's on there. And so I believe you have a category that you can click on, upper back work. It's probably all in there. All right, guys. Thanks for everyone tuning in. Again, if you want to get more content, we developed the Better Benching Academy. All right. That's on bigbenches.com. There, you're going to receive programming, which I think is one of the huge benefits. All our programs that you see on our website are going to be free to you when you're in the Better Benching Academy. All right. You're going to be able to access and download all of it. All right. So, I mean, right there, you get a shit ton of value for the price. And then we also have my training recap. So I recap what I'm doing in my training, working up to trying to take this 220 weight class world record in single ply with an 810 bench. So I cover all those training sessions. I kind of talk in depth about what's going on, why I'm doing the things I'm doing. We cover accessory movements. I post up a lot of different exercises that you guys can use, a lot of different tips that you guys can utilize. Really everything geared towards getting you benching better, benching injury free, benching stronger, benching with better technique, looking better, more efficient, all that in the Better Benching Academy. Check that out, bigbenches.com. Go to BB Academy. I'd love to see you on the inside. We're going to do some exclusive Q&As and things on there as well. And then obviously when you sign up, you'll get access to our team group on Facebook, which is a private group for all my full coaching lifters and then anyone in the academy. All right, guys, I appreciate everyone tuned in. Much love to you all. Thanks for tuning in on Tuesdays. I have a lot of fun with these. Next Bench Talk Live will be next Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You know where to find me, in the office. Bench is down there in the garage. So I'm close to it. I'm within proximity of the bench. You know where to meet me. Appreciate you guys. You're all awesome. I'll talk with you soon.